G'day guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're here to take a look at my AFL Fantasy team. The first look at it since they just released AFL Fantasy for 2024. Now of course this probably will change 100,000 times before the actual season begins, but I just want to go through it today just to take a look at my initial thoughts and what I'm kind of thinking as this season goes forward. So now we will take a look at the team going into 2024, my first drafted team. So as we can see here, I've picked my team so far, and we start with defenders in Dacos, Sinclair, Young, Himmelberg, Zach Williams, and Gibcus as the six. Now Nick Dacos, not really surprised. I think it'll be pretty popular going into 2024. I'm actually kind of surprised that he is still a defender. I guess he did have a lot of kick-ins, and he did get a lot of handball receives back there in 2023 for Collingwood, but I am still surprised that he is a defensive midfielder, so I think that he will be very popular. With Jack Sinclair, I think that towards the end of the season for St Kilda, he did get quite a bit of midfield time, so I think that will just increase going into next season, so that's why I've picked him. I know it is quite high to use a lot of cash on defenders, but I do think that these two are going to be getting a lot of midfield time in 2024. And the same goes for Hayden Young. 805, that's pretty expensive, but he did play quite a bit of midfield time towards the end of the season for Fremantle. And with a couple of departures in the off-season, I think Hayden Young will definitely be getting a lot more midfield time for the Dockers. So I think that he will actually be averaging at least 95 plus. That's maybe a big call, but I do think that's going to happen. Harry Himmelberg is my fourth defender, kind of the mid-price defender here. I did have recently seen an interview with him saying that he is going to be predominantly a defender next year. They're not going to be trialling him up forward, so I think that's really good to see. I was going to go with Elliot Yeo, but at this stage, just the injury-prone nature of him, I'm just a little bit tentative to go with Yeo. So I think Harry Himmelberg's my choice there. Now, Zach Williams and Gibcus are my last two in-team defenders. And Zach Williams obviously did an ACL, I believe, just before the season of 2023 for Carlton. I think he will be back, and he's pretty good average of 80, I would say, when he's fit. 75, 80. So I think he can definitely back that up again. And yeah, I think he'd definitely be a pretty good low-price defender to start the season, and hopefully we'll go up by about 200, 250k before we have to get rid of him in the end. And Josh Gibcus, kind of a forgotten defender for Richmond, obviously was injured throughout all of 2023. He's definitely an up-and-coming intercept defender / key defender really for Richmond. And considering they're kind of back on a rebuild, the Tigers next year, I think Gibcus, as long as he is fit, he will definitely be getting a lot of game time. After that, we get to the midfield. We have Bontempelli, Davies Uniacke, Sam Walsh, Tuke Miller, Jordan De Goey, Paddy Dow, Colby McKercher, and Jeremy Sharp. Now, the high-priced it may be a bit of a high-priced midfield. Really, having 5 midfielders over 750k is a lot. However, because we'll be talking about the forward line in a minute, which is probably the reason why I've gone so much money into my midfield. Bontempelli, pretty obvious choice. I think he's going to be backing up his great season in 2023 next year. Davies Uniacke, I think that he's kind of underpriced. I think he had a really good start to 2023 and then got his injury and kind of never really bounced back to what his form was. And I think with a great pre-season, I've already seen a few reports that Davies Uniacke's on for has had a great pre-season so far. So as long as he stays fit, I think he definitely go another step further in his career. But I can see Davies Uniacke getting 110 plus average in 2024. I could definitely see that happening. Sam Walsh, I think he's going to be very popular after the final series that he had in 2023. I think that he's obviously had a very tough start to the year with an injury, and then just couldn't really kick on into some good form really until late in the season towards the finals. But I think we definitely saw a switch in Sam Walsh towards the end of the year into finals. And I think we can see that a lot of midfielders or players, if they do shine in finals, that form goes on into next year. So I think Sam Walsh can definitely bring that form into next season for the Blues. Tuke Miller obviously has shown in the past how well he can average in fantasy and how well he can play. Obviously, with a big injury last year, it did hamper his performance, and he did kind of play a weird tagging role towards the end of the year for the Suns. Then we get to Jordan De Goey. Now, this one, I'm really unsure, 50-50 on this one at this stage. his best form, he definitely gets into this team, and he's going to be an average of 105 in a midfield for Collingwood next year. But if he doesn't hit that form, or Craig McRae decides to play him a little bit more forward, which could potentially happen, his average won't reach the heights that it potentially be if he just plays straight midfield. So this one is definitely a buyer beware, or a caution at this stage for Jordan De Goey. I may change. That's one that I'm definitely thinking of changing as we get closer to round one. After that, we get to Paddy Dow. Obviously, got recruited to St Kilda from Carlton. I think that this one could be a good choice for St Kilda. They do need a little bit more midfield depth, and I think that Paddy Dow could definitely be running through there as first couple of rotations into the midfield. So at a price of only 512, I think that's pretty cheap, and I think he could definitely average, that 90 plus if he can hit that form for the Saints. Colby McKercher was pick 2 in the draft, the first pick for North Melbourne. He averaged really good in the under-18s for Tasmania, so I think he can definitely back that up. And I think that's probably being the highest priced sole midfielder as a draftee, I think he definitely can back that up. And obviously at North Melbourne as well, he'll more likely be getting midfield minutes rather than if he was playing for a top 10 club. And finally, Jeremy Sharp rounds out the 8 midfielders. He did get picked up as a delisted free agent, I believe, from the Gold Coast Suns to Freo. So I think with the likes of Liam Henry leaving in the trade period, I think that Jeremy Sharp can take that wing role for the Dockers. And there was also talk that Damien Hardwick didn't really want Jeremy Sharp to go. So if Sharp was in the sights of in the best 23 for the Gold Coast, he'll definitely be in the best 23 for the Dockers. And I think he can definitely average around 60 to 70 per game, which I think is good enough for a midfielder priced at only 284. Now the Ruckman, I know Tim English is the highest priced player and had a massive year in 2023. But the fact that Max Gawn and Brodie Grundy are priced so low, I couldn't go past picking them two. They are, the top 2 ruckmen from 2021 onwards, and they were basically the end game ruckman that you would have. And considering they're so low priced at the moment, and both of them will be playing sole ruck roles now, I think this was a no-brainer for me, and that's why I've picked both of them as the ruckman. But now to the forward line, which I think is going to be the biggest contention of really everyone's team, especially early on before we see some pre-season, form and pre-season games. So we've got at the moment Sam Flanders, Bolton, Adams, Reid, Cadman, and Manor. Now, Sam Flanders, I think, will be the most popular AFL fantasy player going into early next season because he obviously had a massive end to 2023 for the Suns, and hopefully Damien Hardwick keeps him to that role that Stephen King had him in that midfield throughout the end of 2023. So if Flanders keeps that role, he will be, he would be severely underpriced at the moment. But there obviously is a little bit of question mark. Will he be getting the midfield time? I hope he does. And obviously he has a really high ceiling. But at the moment, obviously, forwards are really hard to pick from. The highest priced forward is Jack McRae. And I don't think he's going to be having a massive year, considering the Bulldogs like to rotate so many people through that midfield. I don't think he's going to be getting the midfield minutes, hence why I picked Flanders as my top forward. Shea Bolton and Taylor Adams are kind of... we'll start with Shea Bolton. The reason why I've picked him is because I think now that Adam Uze has taken over, I think he has to play Shea Bolton in the midfield if Richmond are going to do anything in 2024. He's that spark player, but he also brings a lot more quality to Richmond and their midfield. And considering they don't really have a lot of midfield depth now with Cochin retiring as well, I think Shea Bolton has to be running through that midfield. And hence, I think he can average over 100 in 2024. Taylor Adams, obviously moving from Collingwood to Sydney in the trade period, may surprise a few people, but I think that Sydney, they obviously didn't have a lot of midfield depth, and is the reason why they recruited Taylor Adams. I think he's actually going to be getting a lot more midfield time than what he did at the Pies. He kind of played a weird half-forward role for the Pies last year, and I think that he'll be getting a lot more midfield time at the Swans, and at the moment, it's definitely a contentious one. I don't know if I'll keep that one. But at this stage, I think you have to be a little bit creative with your forward line. So that's why I've picked Taylor Adams at this stage. Harley Reid, pretty obvious one. Number 1 pick. I think he'll average pretty well. So I'm going to keep him there for now. Hopefully no injuries. Aaron Cadman. This one's a bit interesting. They're saying that he's having a massive pre-season for the Giants. They think he's going to be he'll be fit for round 1, and he'll be definitely in that round 1 team if everything goes to plan. He is a tall forward though, so that's obviously a little bit harder to score in AFL Fantasy. But I do think that with a good pre-season, a good run at it, I think he can definitely average around 60, 70 and be a good cash cow for the early part of the season. And the last one is Sean Manor. 200k forward, obviously was picked up from Werribee, had a massive game in the VFL Grand Final in the loss to the Gold Coast Suns. He kicked, I think, 6 goals in that game, and I just think he obviously played midfield for Werribee. I don't know if he gets that midfield spot for Geelong, but I do think that he can definitely bring something to the Cats if he is able to play in round 1. That one could definitely change depending on if he gets a debut or not. But yeah, I think that's my 22 picked. Now, most of the players on my reserves list really are just fillers for now. But Daniel Curtin and Schoenmaker, as long as they debut in round 1, I don't think they will change. I think those two will be my reserves for the defence. Ethan Stanley and Jackson Binns, kind of fillers. I think that Ethan Stanley has a chance to debut, well, not debut, he did play a couple of games in 2023, but I do think that he has a chance to play for the Dockers early. And Jackson Binns had a really good season for Carlton in the reserves, but just couldn't break into that team. Archer Reed is my Ruckman reserve. I doubt that he'll play. If there's any Ruckman that's like low 200s, he'll probably be getting a spot in that spot. And then my forwards are Darcy Jones and Nguyen. I'm sorry, I probably pronounced that terribly. But obviously, I think that Nguyen's more of a defender, so I think he will be picked for North Melbourne early in the season. And Darcy Jones was injured for all of 2023 for the Giants. So I think with a good pre-season, there's a lot of good talk about him. I think he could definitely debut in round 1 and definitely bring an impact. And then finally, Jed Buslinger is my reserve utility. So at this stage, that's just a filler at this moment in time. I will likely change those sort of reserves depending on who gets the debut in round 1. Now, of course, if you haven't seen the AFL Fantasy news, opening round will not be included in the first round. Those scores will not be counted into the first round of AFL Fantasy, and also they will not count to the prices of the players playing in that opening round, 8 teams. This is my best team going into round 1. I'm not really looking at opening round / round 1 buys at this stage. I will more look at that when we get closer, but this is my best team going into the round 1 look at this stage. I will be, like I said a couple of times, I will definitely be making changes to this team. But in the next couple of weeks, guys, we'll be talking about this more in our Boundary Riders podcast. My brother, who's the co-host of that, will be talking about his team. So make sure to tune into that. It's out every single Thursday on the YouTube channel as well as Spotify. And in the next couple of weeks as well, we'll probably be going through a team again, maybe if there's a few updates. And we will be, for the first time, doing an AFL Fantasy League, where viewers and subscribers can join in, and we'll be giving a prize. We haven't really decided what the prize will be at this stage. Maybe a AFL store gift card or something like that. Maybe you guys could let us know down below what sort of prize you guys would like to win. Nothing too expensive. I'm not exactly rich, but you guys can let us know down below. Let us know what you thought of my AFL Fantasy team at this stage. Thanks for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. But that's all from me, so I'll catch you all in the next one.